Hey class, I'm about to post probably some of the most boring podcasts in the history of the medium, and they're on citations. But that's okay. One of the things I want you to come out of this class with is an understanding of the significance of citations. And just to remind you, citation is a word that includes both endnotes and footnotes. Endnotes are at the end of a document, footnotes are at the bottom of the page. They all come under the aegis of citation. And as I've said before, but I want to say it again, citations are used both to tell scholars where you got your information so folks can double check you to make sure you're not lying or creating fake news or making it up. And that's, I think, how most people think about citations. More importantly, in more sophisticated historical or historians or history students realize that citations are also a dialogue between you and the author. The author is telling you, hey, this is where the information is on the subject that you're interested in. So citations are extraordinarily useful, and I would even say they're foundational to understanding how you do um, scholarly research. Citations will send you to secondary sources, books and literature, books and journals, monographs and journals. Monograph in a book is the same thing. Monograph's the more scholarly word for a book. So monographs and journal articles. But also, what's beautiful about citations is they'll often send you to primary sources, such as newspaper articles or the papers of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and they'll tell you where they are. So if, and I've told this to a bunch of students this week, if you see something on your subject and there's an article on it, let's just say the New York Times, we always default as New York Times, but of course there's multiple newspapers, right? But let's say you see a citation, it says New York Times, January 1st, 1900. Go check out that citation. You're not cheating by doing that. I can't tell you how many times I've gone and looked at a primary source that a site has sent me to, and that I found something in the source that the author who sent me in that direction didn't feel was necessary for their project. It's not that they made a mistake, it was just that they were looking at a different focus. So I just can't stress to you enough that I want you leaving this class very familiar with citations and the significance of citations and how helpful citations are in the scholarly project. And citations appear in secondary sources, they appear in monographs, they appear in journal articles, they appear in dissertations. So just get familiar with citations and don't let citations intimidate you, which I think is true for a lot of folks. Citations, you look at it and it just seems like Greek, right? But now I want you to look at a citation and be able to interpret it. It's really not that hard. You just, they're telling you that where they got their information. I got it from this book or this article or this primary source. Really not that complicated, right? So what I'm going to do in this set of lectures is I'm just going to tell you how I want you to cite books and monographs and books and monographs again are the same thing. Monographs and journal articles and maybe something else. And this is from page, let's see, 212 of the Little Seagull book that we ask you to buy. And we'll talk about that more later in the semester. So real quick, one of the points I want to make is there's two different kinds of style if you look at the Little Seagull. You'll see note, and note is another word for citation, okay? Note, citation, endnote, footnote, all the same thing. Actually, under the word citation, you can put in note, endnote, footnote, okay? So note is the citation on the document that you're writing, okay? So you'll see note and the proper citation for something that appears in a text, okay? Then you'll see bibliography underneath that. Bibliography is a list of all your sources where you list your sources alphabetically. We don't really do that in this course. Actually, I didn't do it in my book either. You don't have to do it. It's very handy if you do it. So you might get confused. When you look at this page, what's the difference between note and bibliography? That's the difference. Note is citation in the way that we've been talking about it. It's in the text. And bibliography is if your professor asks you to list in order every source that you've used. That's a bibliography. Okay, so that's the distinction between those two. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with book.